everybody? I'm Danny Otto. Welcome into an all-new episode of That Recap Show. Now, normally, this would be the part where I'd say major spoiler alert ahead, but we are on this journey towards the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, and along the way, we are rewatching all of the past X-Men and Deadpool movies. So for this edition, we are rewatching and recapping The Wolverine. So without further ado, let's start the show!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.
Judy with me to break down some of our favorite moments from the Wolverine movie. It's Jon Rico!
Hello.
Hello!
What's going on? It's Wolverine time.
It is Wolverine time. Finally, we get the main focus where it should be, on Wolverine. Again. I feel like it's just, the original trilogy was pretty much focused on Wolverine. We got the funniest moment from First Class, I feel like, was the Wolverine scene. Like, it's just, it's the Wolverine show.
Yeah, the one that does the First Class cameo. Yeah, that was really good.
But anyway, now we have
just again in this movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Just a pretty boy. I like that. A little callback.
Exactly. But anyway, yeah, I mean, getting right into this, there were moments in this movie. This is not a perfect movie, but I did enjoy this movie a little bit more than I expected to enjoy it. And to just kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, this was my first time watching this movie. This isn't a retro recap for me. This is one of the few times where I really have not watched this. I hadn't watched this before this.
That's the first time viewing for you.
Exactly. This was my first time.
It's not retro.
It's not the retro recap for me. It's just a brand new episode of That Recap Show. But anyway, so I did enjoy it more than I was going to expect, and that'll play more into my takeaways. I'm gonna get into that, kind of some of the things I noticed in my first time viewing that I did not expect. Just from, I knew of this movie, I saw clips of this movie, stuff like that. I'll get into that in my takeaways. But one of the I guess unintentional funny moments, or at least my brain made it funny moments of this movie, happened towards the end in the final battle scene, and it was between Logan and Viper, the lady who could, I guess, poison people.
AKA Madam Hydra.
Yeah. But at one point during the final battle, and at this point I can't remember exactly, where it came up, she spits into Logan's eyes. And the only thing I could think of was the scene it's been memed, and us playing a bunch of games together with our friends, with Pete especially. I've heard this phrase a million times.
Pocket sand.
That's all I could think of, and I legitimately had to pause the movie during that part because I just started laughing, and I was like, I'm gonna miss something during this final battle scene that's probably important to the story, because I can't stop laughing. I'm just like giggling to myself about that.
Wow.
I know, right? But anyway, that was all because of like my weird brain and just the way that I went into it. But yeah, there were definitely parts that I really enjoyed of this movie that I, didn't expect. Overall, my viewing of this movie, I enjoyed. And I don't know why it's taken me so long to kind of have watched this. I was telling you about this, like when this movie was coming up, in our rewatch and our recap stuff, that I really don't know. It just was like weird timing of like, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I'll see it. Like it wasn't like I wasn't in a rush to see it in the movies. And then when it came out on DVD, Blu-ray, stuff like that, it was more like I was like, oh yeah, I can see this. I'll go see it. I'll see it sometime. And I don't know what happened. It was just a weird mix of just not seeing it at the right time or it coming out at a weird point. But anyway, Rico, what were some of your instant reactions before I get into too much? Because I know I don't want to go over my takeaway early, but Rico, what were some of your instant reactions for the Wolverine?
Yeah, maybe there was just like this kind of thing in your subconscious, like, well, the last two X-Men movies haven't been the greatest, so it's just kind of like there's that little like gut feeling, like, oh, please Please don't be repetitive of history.
Well, also, and I was telling you, there are some other movies on our list that we're going to rewatch where it wasn't even had anything to do with me not wanting to see them. It was I was already all in on MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like that was what was in my stratosphere. And this was kind of just, I knew of it, but I was like, oh, I'll get to that eventually. But this MCU I really want to pay attention to.
Right.
So type of thing. So it was like when we get to some of the movies that are about to start coming up, it was like you really had to grab me. Like obviously, the original Deadpool grabbed me and I saw that. I saw that opening night in the theaters. I still remember that.
Mhm.
But yeah, this was one of those movies that, and a couple other ones on this rewatch list that I just didn't hit my viewing stratosphere because I was more already into the MCU, all the related MCU titles and stuff like that at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah. But also, yeah, I love this movie. I remember seeing this in theaters. Like this is what 2013 this came out. We were talking about before show the other movies that came out that year that I can think of off the top of my head. Thor: The Dark World came out that year, and that was one I didn't see in theaters. Which is odd enough. I think I've seen almost every single MCU movie in theaters, other than that one, except for maybe the first couple. And then also Man of Steel came out that year, and I love that movie to death. So to me, it was a pretty great year for kind of comic book movies overall, and
Yeah.
it was also kind of started like this upward trend in comic book movies because the next year we get Winter Soldier and some really high quality movies like that. But yeah, I think if it weren't for like the last 30 minutes or so, where Viper kind of turns into like the mustachy twirly villain and the kind of goofy cartoony girl that she is, in this, where especially a lot of her dialogue is very kind of like I'm very evil and look at me, almost like very Rita Repulsa. I think if you just take out that element and you just kind of like stuck with this whole story of Logan going to Japan and dealing with this kind of family drama story, that's very intercut with like politics and the Yakuza and stuff like that. I think you have a really solid story just with that alone, and it would have been regarded as probably one of the higher regarded comic book movies, probably along up there with Logan, maybe not up on that same like S tier with Logan, but maybe just like a little bit of a notch below that. I think it'd be a lot more regard in that sake. Because I think again, him dealing with the Black Clan and all of that and that stuff and all the fights equals with the Yakuza. I think it's just really cool stuff. And then there's some really great character work in here with Logan especially as well. So yeah, I like really going back and revisiting this one a lot. Because I also feel like this is like we're really getting to see Hugh Jackman truly shine as the character. We talk about the CGI in some of these past movies where they're a little bit rough. The opening scene of this movie, right off the bat, gives you a pretty dope CG shot of Logan absorbing the whole blast from Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And him recovering from that. It's just like one of the more incredible like special effects shots, in my opinion. And there's some pretty other incredible shots in this movie too, like him with the arrows in his back, with his arms fully
Holy
there's some really great
shit.
imagery in this movie, and there's another image I'll get to later on in my takeaways that I really love, especially. And this movie also has the great alternate ending where we get to see his cowl for the first time as well, the brown and yellow cowl too. So that's really cool.
I had seen that alternate scene. I actually
Mhm.
thought, I told you when we were talking about this movie, I actually thought that was the post-credit scene. And you were like, no,
Yeah,
that was an alternate
it was
ending
an
scene.
alternate ending.
I thought
Yeah.
that like that because I hadn't seen it. I was like, oh yeah, the post-credit scene where you see his comic accurate costume was really cool. And you're like, no, that was a deleted alternate ending thing.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah. It
shit.
would have been cool if that was the actual like ending of the movie, because that would have been the cool like tease. But then it never really gets followed up with. So I guess I see why they left it out. But
Right.
who knows? Maybe in this alternate future we have here.
Yeah. I mean, before I even get to my takeaway, going off what you said, the other really cool kind of, not theme of this movie, but part of this movie is the fact that Logan is dealing with not being able to regenerate like while he's fighting everyone too.
Yeah.
Which adds like he's like, I don't know why I'm bleeding, or I just got shot. Like he's still running around and doing
Yeah.
it. So it's almost like a Taken movie
I will find you, and I will kill you.
type of thing. Like where
This
he's
is the first
actually,
movie directed by James Mangold too, who would go on to direct Logan. So you could tell that was an aspect of Logan that he really wanted to tackle in these stories. And I think it did a great job enhancing the Wolverine character just in
yeah.
general. I think it really took him to another level. Like this movie in general, like kind of like started taking him to another level, especially the one that got him to Logan, in my opinion.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it just it adds that much more because you're like, 'cause at least for me, watching it for the first time, I was like, oh shit, he could really take some damage here now.
Yeah.
Like something
He's gotta
bad
be
could,
smarter about what his decisions. Yeah, so I think it's really cool. He can't be as reckless. He can't be diving headfirst into helicopters and then walking
Right.
away from explosions with perfect hair.
Exactly. But you want to get to some takeaways?
Let's do it.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to kick off big takeaways. Just like I was saying, this being my first viewing, there were things that I picked up on. Now, I know I had seen, clips from this movie. I know I had seen, the alternate ending part. And I had seen what the mid-credit scene is. And I'll get more into that in my predictions and kind of things we want to see moving forward. But what I hadn't seen, and I hadn't really seen discussed when I kind of, in the stratosphere of this movie and my recollection of this movie, did not see very much about Jean being in this movie and did not expect to the degree at which she was in this movie. And she's like, she's not in a lot, but she's in it enough where I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, she's an important aspect of Logan's character arc for sure.
Yeah, and it adds this new level of, you see him develop as a character, and it goes into what you were saying, kind of where you can see the beginning stages of where, the character needed to go for the Logan movie type of thing, because you can see this grief and you can see this pain and you can see all of this that is portrayed in these, dreamlike scenes with her in it, with Jean and Logan in it type of thing. And so it was really cool to kind of see that maturing of character, that different character traits being woven into this to make this feel like more of like a real person, if that makes sense, type of thing. So it was really cool to kind of see that, especially not expecting that in this movie. I like I said, I knew aspects of this movie. I knew scenes from this movie, but that was not something that I was expecting. And that was, I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, to kind of have that in there and to kind of see traits that needed to be there to get this more grizzled character that we got in Logan type of thing. And so I really liked kind of seeing those beginning stages of that in this, and to make it more of like like you said, coming into a character that really, has this trauma and this real stuff. They're not this invincible force that's just running through the decades and running through the wars and stuff's just happening around them that they don't care about anymore type of thing.
Facing his mortality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
it's a big thing. It's a big theme for Logan, especially. Yeah, for
right.
sure.
Exactly. So it was just really interesting to kind of see that not had seen in that not had seen that coming. I guess for me, I did not expect that, and so it was just interesting to kind of to kind of see that. But Rico, what were some of your takeaways from the Wolverine?
Yeah, and I like the way that the movie starts, where he's like completely isolated in the woods, kind of living almost like a Wolverine, just kind of like a wild animal. And I like when he's just walking out there in the woods next to the bear.
Yeah,
and
he was hanging out with
the whole opening stuff with the bear and the hunters is some brutal stuff and stuff in general. And I think it's just a great way to kind of start off this character, like to show what kind of pain he's in. Because like. I imagine that like the amount of time that's gone by is probably the amount of time between the movies. Like that's usually probably the way they usually treat these. So it's been several years since the events of him having to kill Jean. So there's a lot of time between there where he decides to like leave the X-Men. Like when he goes off on his own, like, I can imagine how much pain he's been in since then. So it's just a great way to bring the character in, and the way he's kind of haunted by Jean throughout the movie and all these different situations, and the way it's kind of balanced with his relationship with Marco is really great. And I just kind of like the way that whole character aspect is handled. Yeah, it really humanizes him in a way that hadn't been done in the movies before. Rather than him just being like this rage monster who slices everything up.
Right.
Like here he is dealing with some really emotional shit. Especially for someone who's been alive as long as he has, right? So yeah, I think that's really cool. But man, we can't be talking about a Wolverine movie without talking about some of the incredible action sequences that happen in this movie, because I think this really steps up a notch from past Wolverine movies where he's fighting people. I think really X2 in the school is probably the best Wolverine kind of fight stuff that happened up until this point, maybe in my opinion. But also but the bullet train sequence, first off, it's just fantastic. I think the choreography itself, just the way they're utilizing that kind of one that technology in real life, the way they actually have those, and just I like the little standoff between him and the other guy on the top of the train where he's kind of like, he does a little fake out and then causes them to actually get clothesline on the pole. I just think that's really cool. Like the whole choreography of that whole stuff. I just can't imagine how you plan that stuff out, and just like the way that this, to me, that's just really fun to watch. And then this is also kind of like the next step up before we get R-rated Wolverine too. Like we're getting some pretty brutal looking kills, but it's still at that point where like he's pulling out his claws and we're not getting like full blood splatter coming out of him. But like we're actually getting a little bit more blood in this one too, because we're actually showing him dealing with the wounds that he's dealing with the, like, especially after the funeral fight. The funeral fight's pretty great too. I like the way they juggle a lot of these really cool characters in this, like Mariko's husband, who's the archer for the Black Clan. I think that's really I like his character a lot. And then of course, going into my favorite fight, and maybe my favorite Wolverine fight ever, the fight between him and Shinjin at the Mariko like house, basically, where Shinjin comes in, he's all poisoned up by Viper, and he's got the samurai armor on, which I think is badass. And obviously, like you just get this great, like you basically a samurai fight with Wolverine using his claws as his own swords, and basically losing the fight, but because he's taken out the device and he's gone back to God mode Wolverine, he just absorbs all of it, and then he just basically wins by his putting the fear in the guy's eyes, and then puts a nice little three hole punch in his neck, and then that's it. But man, I love Hiroyuki Sanada in this movie as Shinjin. I think he's probably one of the great Japanese actors maybe ever, but definitely living right now. And he's absolutely killing it right now in Shogun, of course. If you're not watching that, you guys definitely should. But he's also, this was actually one of the first movies like on the US side that he was in that would lead to him being in movies like Endgame, being Scorpion and Mortal Kombat, which he's fantastic in. He's definitely the best part of that movie as well. And then he's in like movies like John Wick as well. So yeah, he's definitely someone to like when you see him on a cast, like, ooh, it's gonna be a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I love that fight a lot.
Oh man, that fight was great. Yeah, I absolutely love the bullet train scene. And the one thing that actually reminded me of was the original Mission Impossible scene where they're on top of the train. And I don't think that was a bullet train. But it was still like, a high speed on top of a train with a I mean, that one had a helicopter, but yeah, it was just an awesome scene. I had that was one of the scenes where I was like, oh shit. And especially like you said, where he fakes him out, and oh yeah, I love it.
The whole movie has like a Western feel to it in Japan as well. And I guess, a lot of times you can kind of correlate Western stories and samurai stories in their own right. They're not that far off without just location, right? But I just kind of love that whole setting of it as well. Just really, really good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to get to some predictions? Question mark.
Yeah, let's do it.
What are we calling this? I mean, because they're not predictions. I mean,
spitballing.
Yeah, spitballing. Yeah, you want to kick us off?
Mm-hmm. So, one of my favorite characters in this movie that unfortunately we do see this character again, but we don't get to see this version of the character again, is Yukio, played by Rila Fukushima. She's just interesting from beginning to end. Like I love her dynamic between her and Logan. I just like the way that she kind of like her vibe compared to his vibe, like the angry man versus like her, like everything seems fun. It's just I really enjoy whenever they were on screen together. I particularly like one of my favorite lines is how'd you know there's a pool there? And he's like, I didn't. Which I'm pretty sure is a James Bond reference, which I also loved, but I love that. But I just think she's a far more interesting version of the Yukio character than the one that we get in Deadpool 2. And I think the one in Deadpool 2 is really fun. She's Negasonic Teenage Warhead's girlfriend.
Yep.
But she's essentially just the high wage girl of the movie. We don't really get to see her do much.
Hi, Wade.
Hi, Yukio.
Please don't.
You guys make a super cute couple. Yeah.
And we know that she's gonna be in Deadpool and Wolverine, the Deadpool version of Yukio. But there have been rumblings of possibly this version of Yukio being in the movie, and I think it'd be kind of a funny, like, kind of a moment between Deadpool and Wolverine, where Deadpool's kind of like my Yukio versus your Yukio, kind of a thing. Where and that's how he refers to him, like, no, this is my Yukio, like my Yukio's better. And like, even though like this version of Wolverine may not even know like that version of Yukio, he would just see them as like someone that they know. But I thought another thing when it comes to Yukio in this movie, I was talking about the fight between Wolverine and Shinjin, but the fight between Shinjin and Yukio before after when Wolverine's doing the surgery on himself is pretty great too. She does a great job actually like defending Logan and like her defensive fighting. I just think the way that the way they're fighting around him while she's also had to like defend him getting slashed with the sleep, just really cool stuff. But I was talking about some of the ways I thought this would have been like a better ending, like especially the last 30 minutes when it kind of turns into like the CG mech suit and Viper kind of just kind of one peeling her skin off and becoming the ball lady. That was also just creepy. But I think something that would have made this like again one of like the more better comic book movies is if you had leaned full into Shinjin being the bad guy. Especially if you had just allowed Yashida from the grandpa to die, and then when he takes over, he finds out about like the stockpiled adamantium, and then he makes like his own samurai suit, and then he becomes the actual like silver samurai, not just like a robot suit, but he's actually got like the fighting ability. He probably makes like an adamantium sword, and it actually becomes like an actual threat to Wolverine. I think that would have been like a cool way to bring a great actor like Hiroyuki Sanada as the main villain of the movie, and I think it would just enhance that whole third act maybe just a little bit more. But apparently, studios are just going to meddle a little bit, and they want big CG mechs.
Studios are gonna studio.
They do that, they just do that.
They be doing that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I think it lends really well into when we're getting actors that play two different parts.
Mm-hmm.
Where we can have the mix-ups and stuff. Like, I think it would be hilarious if we have a scene where Deadpool says hi thinking it's his Yukio, but like,
right.
It's not. It's actually the one from the Wolverine.
And then Wolverine's like, I know her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't I meet you? What? Like, just something very like interesting like that, or vice versa type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think would be interesting.
Yeah, because it does suck that we don't get to see her again. Because it's understandable that you can't really see a way that she would fit into the actual Logan movie. But like your takeaway or thing. But we don't see what happens when like they separate. We don't like there's some lost time there. Like what happens?
Right.
To her? I want to know how. I want more Yukio.
She's his bodyguard. Like,
yeah. Well, apparently, not for long.
That's all we get. But yeah, so I mean, this is a little bit of a different experience because, like I've already said, this is my first time viewing this.
Mm-hmm.
So for predictions, I kind of wanted to do a normal prediction and just kind of point out one other thing. It's more of like a prediction / takeaway, a second takeaway type of thing.
Yeah.
Versus a prediction. But I enjoyed the mid credits scene because I kind of put myself in the if I had watched this when it actually came out type of thing. Because number one, it confirms 100% that both Xavier and Magneto have powers back. They're back type of thing.
Yeah, not
immediately confirmed.
That, but Charles has his old body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not only does it do that, but then it also pretty much sets up perfectly the events of Days of Future Past type of thing. It kind of foreshadows that happening. So I didn't know that was like I said, I thought the post-credit scene was, showing off the comic accurate Wolverine stuff. But I enjoyed that. I really did.
It's really good.
Putting myself into that, I mean, I think I enjoy it a little bit more now, knowing, where this is in the placement and knowing that, we have Days of Future Past coming up so quickly after type of thing.
Yeah, and in reality, it only came out, I think, the next year. So they probably are they filmed that scene. Right. Probably have already filmed or probably in the middle of filming Days of Future Past, if anything. So that's what I think is so cool about the kind of layered. They were doing some pretty cool layered storytelling here.
Yeah, and it was really cool. But that's kind of what I wanted to point out kind of during this section because, like I said, it was my first time. But I will think about this. We don't know. Kind of you kind of alluded to it and hinted at it. We don't know exactly what Wolverine we're getting, like what he's from, like what his history, like we don't know what movies he's from, like that Wolverine that we're going to get in Wolverine or Deadpool and Wolverine. We don't know exactly that one. All we've been told is this will not be ruining Logan, that movie.
Yeah. I have to assume it's going to be an alternate universe Wolverine that won't be the one that we've been watching.
Right. No, I get that, especially because we're getting, the cartoon accurate Wolverine suit
Mhm.
type of thing. So I just think it's going to be interesting to see what, and obviously it's going to be kind of, in more of a joking tone, but to see what our, like, the Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine knows as far as what past events happened to him. Because I feel like Deadpool's just going to know everything because he breaks the fourth wall all the time. He kind of is aware of a lot. And especially because we know we get scenes of him very early on in the TVA. I think Wade's going to know pretty much everything like that has happened in the Fox Marvel universe in general. So like I think it's going to be interesting to see what that Wolverine knows as far as like what had happened to that particular Wolverine. And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. And obviously, like I said, it's going to be more of a joking in a joking tone and in a joking way. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of jokes of like, oh, well, that didn't happen to you. That was another one. Like, you know what I mean? Like just like throwaway stuff like that, like that I could see happening. But yeah, I'm just really curious on where he's going to fit in, where he came from, like what has shaped that, and the big event. Obviously, we get that the allude of that in the trailer of, oh, do you want to talk about it now, or are we gonna have to wait for a third act flashback type of thing? Like why everybody in that Wolverine's universe hates him because he basically did something that got everybody else killed or something like that.
Yeah. I was very interesting to see what leads to everything going to shit from here.
Do you think, and here's my only thought, I'm not throwing this out there as my official prediction before the movie. Obviously, we'll do that a little bit closer to. Do you think it's he made the choice not to kill Jean?
Maybe.
That's the only thing I can really like think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've never really thought about it, to be honest.
Because if that battle played out the exact same way, but minus he just doesn't kill Jean, she probably obliterates half, if not all, on there. She can't obliterate Wolverine. He just keeps regenerating. So I don't know.
I'm assuming it's just meant to be that things just don't happen in general, hopefully. And it's just like maybe something happened where they created their own ideal world.
Well, the thing is,
but then eventually the other thing goes about the shit anyway. So, but
right,
it sounds like it's on Charles's end. So
no, I'm not talking about the Logan events. I'm talking about like we get that everyone hates Logan in in his universe for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie.
Oh, right.
Because he did something that got a bunch of people killed. So it has to be a choice he made. He had to have made a choice. So the only big choices that he made that I can think of that could have been opposite to get a lot of people killed, not killing Jean or doing something during Days of Future Past that wasn't right.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like those are the only two times that I could see everything kind of hinging on like Wolverine. His decision type of thing. But anyway, I mean, the sky's the limit on what it could have been. It could be something super small that we don't even think about type of thing.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm hoping it's something new, hopefully. Because I hope so. Because it'd be fun, especially because again, we're talking about a lot of lost time. Like, and these movies kind of cover a lot of lost time. Yeah. I would like them to kind of cover like a little bit, one of those little like lost periods for sure.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But anyway, as we always say, that's what we think. Let us know in the comments below. Are you going to watch Wolverine and on all of the other X-Men and Deadpool movies leading up to Deadpool and Wolverine before the new movie comes out in preparation? And when was the last time you watched the Wolverine? It's actually, it was fun. I liked it. I actually enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to hear about all of our latest audio and video podcast releases. Bye, everybody!
Poppin' Off presents That Recap Show.